Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well as usual. So I'm back today once again after a couple of weeks break because the last video I posted of George G's contest, that was actually filmed a couple of weeks ago, but I only managed to upload it recently. It's a long story because my old computer died basically. So the one that I processed and edited videos on, it just one day kicked the bucket because it's very old, quite sort of like a dinosaur really, but it showed a great service. And I tried to reconnect it and I actually managed to electrocute myself in the process. So that's when I thought, okay, yeah, it's pretty much had its day. So that means for future videos, I will have to get a new computer eventually. Right now I can still make these videos without editing them. So that means that will encourage me to talk less crap. But anyway, that explains the sort of disjointedness of the channel lately. But it's also on a bright note, it's a time for me to get a new computer. So hopefully the sound and visual quality of my videos will be better. That's something that's been brought to my attention by several people. I know the volume level on my videos is crap. I'm not sure if that's to do with the old computer or the old phone that I'm using, but we'll see once I get the new Mac. Hopefully, you know, with the improved technology, the quality of videos will improve. But anyway, I don't want to go on and on about this, but just explaining what's been happening lately. But anyway, I know I've been saying that I've had a few collection updates to do. That's true, but I'm still in the process of listening to those. So today I thought I'd go back to my existing CD collection and just continue down the alphabet with a few videos that will keep the channel going until the next collection update. So if you've been watching this series, you'll know that the last albums that I covered in my CD collection were, I think it finished with Creator, so I finished the letter K, Krabathor and Creator. So now we're up to the letter L, and I'm talking about 4 albums today. And quite diverse really. There's 2 albums of black metal and 2 albums of classic rock. Normally I cover albums in alphabetical order, but today I'm shifting the alphabetical order a bit because I want to start with the black metal releases. The reason being, I think most of you are more interested in that rather than classic rock, and I do understand. So yes, we will start with that. 4 albums to talk about, and without further ado, we will get straight into it. Just a moment. I say that, now I've just got to consult my notes, sorry. All right, yep, so okay, so the first album of the day, this is The Legion with Unseen to Creation. So just take this out so you can see it a little better. So if you are not familiar with The Legion, they are a black metal band from Sweden, and this is actually the only album I own by them, but it's a damn good one. So I can pretty much describe this quite quickly. What you're looking at with The Legion, nothing to do with Legion from Marduk, except I did hear a rumor that he was involved with this band at some point anyway, but yeah, what you're looking at with the Legion, especially on this album, is a relentless sea of super fast, razor sharp black metal riffage with sharp, crisp production. So it also features some very fast picked and intricate riffs and guitar parts, and the drums are blasting frequently, but the drumming is very precise, and there are a lot of piercing melodies. So in that sense, speaking of piercing melodies, you know, there's really kind of sharp sounding melodies. The Legion, especially this album anyway, is very similar to Marduk and Dark Funeral. So if you're a fan of those bands, you'll probably like this, which is no surprise why I like it. So it's similar to Marduk and Dark Funeral in terms of the relentless blasting, but perhaps a little bit less chaotic and less of a wall of a sound than Marduk and Dark Funeral, and slightly more melodic. So there are more guitar melodies in this compared to Marduk and Dark Funeral. There are also a lot of tempo shifts, including mid-pace sections, you know, shifting from the blasting into mid-pace sections. So once again, that's very similar to Marduk and Dark Funeral. Now the vocals on this album, they remind me a lot of Maniac from Mayhem, but perhaps not as piercing and shrieking, but you know, in that similar vein, and they really suit the music very well, considering the sheer speed and savagery of the music. And there are also there's some variation in the vocals, there's some low-pitched growls as well, you know, so like just to keep the vocals a bit varied. Now, in terms of the melody, like it sounds, how can I say, like it's, like I said, it's more melodic than Marduk and Dark Funeral, but perhaps not as sickly sweet as, say, Dissection and Sacramentum. So, you know, with those bands, it's like saccharine soaked melodies, not in a bad way, but it's very, very melodic. Where so that's sort of like, in analogous terms, like Dissection melodies, that's sort of like the syrup. This is a bit watered down. So yeah, you could even say that this band is somewhere between Marduk and Dark Funeral on the one hand and Dissection and Sacramentum on the other, but I think leaning more closely to Marduk and Dark Funeral. Now, so I love this album. It's fantastic. Like, it's pretty, it's relentless, and there's a lot of variation in the song. But my only criticism, and I don't want to sound like, for that term to sound wank, because I have been criticized for saying criticism before, but anyway, this is just my honest opinion. I think the only, the only fault perhaps I can, and this is on a personal level with this album, is that it's a bit repetitive and the songs sometimes sound interchangeable. So yeah, as a result of that, there's not a lot of standout tracks, but I still really like the overall sound of the album. Probably the best tracks on here, I like track 2, which is called Retribution, also track 5, Cosmopathic Death Void. I think I'll correct that in the comments if I have to. But my 2 absolute favorite tracks on this album are tracks 7 and 8. So track 7 is entitled On Swift Wings. That features an acoustic guitar intro, but also some powerful choral synths in the vein of Emperor, which is interesting because that's not what the rest of the album's like. But they do have a kind of blasting wall of sound, but also they're not afraid of symphonic parts on occasion, but mostly it's all guitar oriented. And my absolute favorite track on the album, and this is interesting, is an instrumental, and that's track number 8, entitled Ascendancy. Just extremely heavy, powerful, and epic, grandiose and majestic, like a slow, heavy, doom-laden riffs, but really heavy and powerful. So that song, Ascendancy, it's probably my favorite instrumental of all time. Which is interesting because I only own one album of this band, but I think it's my favorite instrumental. And in terms of how it sounds, it's very much in the vein of, like, say, Marduk's Dracul Im Domni Vu, you know, From Heaven Shall Burn, or Dreams of Blood and Iron by Nightwing. You know, there's really sort of slow but heavy as fuck riffs, and it's a very powerful song. So yeah, they're probably my 2 absolute favorite tracks, On Swift Wings and Ascendancy. But like I said, the overall album is still a very enjoyable listen. Just maybe a bit interchangeable and repetitive at times. Cool artwork with this. And that's very Emperor-esque, I think. Intricate artwork. And just showing you the booklet now. So there's all of the lyrics here. A picture of the band, 5 members. And I think the drummer on this album, I can't remember how to pronounce his name, Emil Dragonovich? I can't remember. So if you don't know him, he was the one-time drummer for Marduk. He replaced Frederick Anderson on Marduk's World Funeral, I think, and he stayed for a couple of albums. Absolutely brilliant blasting drummer. So yeah, again, you see that connection with Marduk, is that a former Marduk member was the drummer of this band, so that gives you an indication of what the music sounds like. Yeah, so really good stuff, and I don't really listen to this album as much as I should, maybe because of the repetition, but it's always a satisfying listen. So if you like Swedish black metal, particularly Marduk and Dark Funeral, I can't recommend this enough. So that is The Legion with Unseen to Creation. All right, so that's an album I've never spoken about. Now, the album I'm going to talk about next, I have spoken about in a collection update a long time ago, and this is Leviathan with Howl, Mockery at the Cross. So Leviathan is a band not to be confused with Chris Barnes's thrash metal band before he joined Cannibal Corpse. Very different. No, Leviathan is a one-man black metal band from the US, created by a guy called Jeff Whitehead, who goes under the entity or the name of Rest, W-R-E-S-T. And this band has frequently been associated with DSBM, and I agree with that, like in terms of the sound, you know, and you know, those guitar melodies and that, like, the shrieky vocals and the wall of sound and everything. It's very sort of hypnotic. But yeah, this is the only release I own by them. I was almost going to say album, but it says here on the back, this is not the new Leviathan album. This is demo materials for the die-hard fans. So yeah, and speaking of Leviathan, I know that Jeff has he's released a whole spate of albums, like maybe dozens of albums, I think. So like, because he plays and records all of the music himself. And I remember in this documentary, One Man Metal, he said, you know, I'm not interested in releasing albums through a record label. I just want to get my demos out as soon as possible. So he's a very prolific project. And I love this iconic cover art, by the way. So yes, like I said, it's like very sort of shrieky, wall of soundy DSBM, like hypnotic black metal. It's great, and I really like the guitar tone on this. I said it sort of reminded me, the guitar tone, it reminds me a bit of Blasphemer, Maniac era Mayhem in terms, but musically, in terms of the sound, I think it owes a lot more to Burzum, or you know, it's similar to Burzum in a lot of ways, but it still has its own sound. So it's not a Mayhem clone, it's not a Burzum clone at all, but just inspired by the guitar sound and like maybe the songwriting of Burzum. But yeah, it's a good album. I will be honest with you, it's not an album that I listen to all that frequently. It is, and I don't mean this in a condescending way, it's good background music because it's got that sort of hypnotic element to it, but whenever I put it on, it is a satisfying listen. It just doesn't have a lot of standout tracks for me, but again, it's one of those albums where you listen to it for the overall sound. And so yes, I do like this band. This is the only one I own. I did listen to the other famous one, 10th Sublevel of S. I can't say the full title because my video will get taken down, but yeah, that one didn't grab me that much, so perhaps you guys could let me know what Leviathan albums do you recommend. But this is a good one, definitely, even though it's not an album. Yep, and having said that, there are some good standout tracks on this for me. So probably my favorite tracks are track 4, that's entitled Where Annihilation Dwells. It's got an excellent main riff. So yeah, he brings the riffs on this album, which is absolutely fantastic. And probably my absolute favorite track is track 5, Lyre of Nazareth. That has a great mid-song melodic hypnotic riff. So he really reels you in with those catchy, haunting, eerie riffs, which is great. And speaking of which, I really like the shrieky vocals as well. And then track 7, which is entitled Swol, S-W-O-L. That reminds me a lot of the Burzum song Gebrechlichkeit or Decrepitude from the Philosophem album. You know, so that kind of sort of hypnotic, haunting, ambient black metal. So if you like, yeah, that sort of Philosophem era of Burzum, you'll probably like this release as well. And so yeah, I like the album generally speaking. I just think at times maybe it's overly droning and it drags its feet a bit. But as Sin Nana from Streetborg said, that's one of the characteristics of DSBM. It's sort of like dreary and slow and repetitive, so that's the idea. Whereas for me, I suppose I prefer like faster and more energetic black metal, but it is still a very good atmosphere, and I like this release a lot. So here's the iconic cover art and all song titles on the back. I like the logo of this project as well. And then speaking of the logo, you've got it there. This is obviously a re-released digipack. And yep, so you have that there, and also like a compilation of these artworks. There's Rest in the corpse paint. Yeah, so good release from Leviathan. Like I said, I'm not even close to owning all of them because there's dozens of them, but yes, a very good album, sorry, not album, very good release nevertheless. Please let me know your Leviathan recommendations. But in the meantime, this is Howl, Mockery at the Cross. Okay, and coming up to the last two, like I said, I started with black metal because I think that's what most people are interested in. Now we're continuing with L, but this is classic rock. So maybe some of you would stop watching the video now. I mean, I hope you don't, but I don't need to go into much detail with these albums because everybody knows them. So still in the L, this is actually the beginning of L. So I also have Led Zeppelin 1. Yep, so I don't really need to say anything about this band. You know, it would sound so condescending to even talk about their history or who's in the band, so I'll just rattle that off as I go along. But yeah, classic album. So this was the very first album released by Led Zeppelin in 1969. I know Led Zeppelin always distanced themselves from the term heavy metal, and they said we have nothing to do with it, but pretty much they were the godfathers of heavy metal in the sense that, you know, it's sort of blues-oriented rock, but in terms of the heaviness and the sound of Jimmy Page's guitar solos and the speed of the songs, it was definitely a precursor to heavy metal, I think, along with bands like Deep Purple and so on. But yeah, this is probably my favorite Led Zeppelin album of all time. Everybody knows the songs. yeah, like I said, this one, a lot of the songs are steeped in blues, which is really interesting. Like, blues is not a genre that I listen to frequently, but you know, the way they mix it with this sort of electric rock on this album, it goes down really well. So yeah, Good Times, Bad Times, the opening track, classic song. I've heard it hundreds of times, but I still never get sick of it. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You is a good ballad, and it's got some sort of dark atmosphere, which I really like. You Shook Me, I really like the 12-bar blues in that song, and the, they have harmonica and keyboards in that song, but just really heavy and great plotting riff in that, so I like that. Dazed and Confused, that was sort of like the birth of these really epic, drawn-out songs, but so atmospheric, it's really good. Yeah, so that first 4 tracks are absolutely fantastic. The only 2 I don't get into so much are Your Time Is Gonna Come and Black Mountain Side, the instrumental. Not bad songs, but they just don't stand out a lot to me. But whereas track 7, Communication Breakdown, I absolutely love that song. So fast and full of energy. That is definitely a heavy metal precursor. And I also like I Can't Quit You Baby, because that's sort of like somber and slow and atmospheric. And then it concludes with the sort of upbeat How Many More Times. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. I've probably said too much already. But yeah, I would say if you haven't heard this album for some reason, go and listen to it. It is my favorite Led Zeppelin album. And like I said, I like that melding of heavy electric rock with the classic blues sound. So cool, iconic cover art. And I've also got the record. It's there in the background. I listened to this on record before I made this video. So pretty old school here with the CD booklet and the Atlantic Records CD. But yeah, absolutely classic album, so check it out if you haven't. Led Zeppelin 1. And the last one I'm going to talk about for today, same band. This is Led Zeppelin 2, so obviously the second album released by this band. I don't own 3 and 4 in original format. I think 4 is a good album. Obviously it's got some classic Led Zeppelin songs, but it is patchy at times, and Led Zeppelin 3 is easily my least favorite. Like, that had a couple of great songs like Gallows Pole, but a lot of boring stuff on there, in my opinion. But now we get to this one. This is a great album, but an issue I have with this album is I've just heard it 50 million times, so it's just so predictable. But having said that, if you listen to this for the first time, you can appreciate the quality of music on it. I just think I've overkilled this album with the amount of times I've heard it. Probably my most overplayed Led Zeppelin album, but that in itself is an indication of how good it is because I played it so many times. But yeah, Whole Lotta Love. It's one of those songs where I think, oh, this again whenever I hear it, but it is actually a good song, especially the first time you hear it. Great riff in that song. And it's got that like sort of ambient part in the middle, which went on to influence bands like Def Leppard, you know, with the song Rocket. Yeah, so on this album, I like the more obscure tracks, not the big hits. So they're the most interesting for me at the moment, like What Is and Shall Never Be and the Lemon song. Yeah, so like they're the more obscure ones, and because I've heard them the least, I like that. Thank You is a good song as well. Speaking about sort of overplayed songs like Heartbreaker, yes, I've heard that 50 million times as well, but I really do like the riff in that song. It's very catchy. And also Living Loving Maid, She's Just a Woman, like very catchy song, catchy riff and everything. The only part I don't like about that song is the pre-chorus, because it's a bit depressing, but great guitar solo in that, great groove and riff, so really like that. Yep, and yeah, Ramble On and Bring It On Home, they're songs I've heard so many times once again, but obviously they are still good songs, and this also features an instrumental entitled Moby Dick. You know, this has got the famous epic drum solo by John Bonham, and it just shows how much of a talented drummer he is, you know, especially with the way he used volume. You know, he didn't just pound the drums all the time, but sometimes he went really quiet and he was tapping and everything, but brilliant drum solo in that, and also great guitar solo. So yes, this is a great album. I think I've just overkilled it. But imagine, once again, if for some reason you've been living under a rock and you've never heard this album, this is a very good Led Zeppelin album. So of 1, 2, 3, and 4, 1 and 2 are my favorites. So here's the cover, kind of weird. And again, kind of minimalist booklet. That's a kind of cool picture there. And once again, the Atlantic Records disc. Yeah. So some people might say, is there any need to even talk about Led Zeppelin on this channel? Not really, only in the sense that everyone knows them, but I'm just going through my CD collection in alphabetical order. All right, and also that's why I decided to go through the black metal releases first. Okay, so on that note, guys, I'm going to end it there. In terms of the next video, it will be a collection update, and so I still have a lot of stuff to talk about in future. If the last videos have not been your cup of tea, there's a lot more extreme metal coming. Actually, after my last video, which the contest entry I did for George G's Room of Rock, I think that was my lowest performing video in the channel history. Now, obviously that's got nothing to do with George. I think people just saw this video and didn't like it, but it was like less than 5% likes or something. So I was a bit disheartened by that, and I was thinking, I don't know, should I continue with the channel? Should I bother? But then I thought, no, it's not all about just likes and subscribers. I'm also doing this because I enjoy talking about the music, so I hope you do too. And on that note, thank you for your support of the channel as always. So next couple of videos will be next several videos I should say, will be a spate of extreme metal releases, and hopefully soon I'm getting the new computer. So that will hopefully mean that the sound and visual quality will improve. If you've got any tips about how to improve the volume on videos, please let me know. I mean, I know I could obviously speak louder, but I don't want to shout because then I'll feel like an idiot. So anyway, let me know. All right, so interested to hear your comments on this video, guys, and on the bands, everything I've talked about here today. So I look forward to hearing from you, and I'll be back again soon. So in the meantime, take care, and I'll see you later. Bye for now.